correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience.
Welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm here with my friend Steve.
Hello, Steve.
And I just confused the poop out. And we're going to talk some RPGs.
Look, I've been at work for the last 8 hours or plus.
Yeah.
My brain is half scrambled because that's what my job does to me sometimes.
I feel it. I understand completely. My brain is half scrambled all of the time. So,
there's that aspect of it too in my case. But
yeah.
So yeah, how you been?
But good. Not as good as you've been going to Gamer Nation Con.
Yes, I had much fun.
I'm glad. I'm glad it was a good time. I hope next year that I can go, because I have quite a handful of games that I could play that fit into that theme.
Yeah. Next year the theme is to boldly go. So, Star Trek, but not necessarily expressly Star Trek. And let's face it, I'm going to twist the theme anyway because that's what I do.
I have things that fit very rigidly in that theme, and I have things that fit very loosely in that theme. And yeah.
Look, all I'm saying is I put Tolkien in the Men in Black universe for last year.
Yeah, exactly. But aside from Gamer Nation Con, let's talk about Order 66 podcast.
I never listen.
No, me neither.
No, Order 66 is, actually, it's the podcast that started Gamer Nation and Gamer Nation Con, so kind of ties in a little bit. Basically, Order 66 is the place to go for Star Wars role-playing stuff. Talk, they do deep dives on, look, they've been doing it since before the current edition came out, and that's been 12 years. There's everything from deep dives on classes, on books, equipment, all kinds of stuff. And what they've been working on most recently, although it's been a little while since they put out another episode, is kind of a setting guide for what they're calling the Fractured Republic, which is kind of roughly 100 years after, I'm drawing a blank on the name of episode 9. Is it Rise of Skywalker?
I think so, yeah. I think that's
whatever the last one was.
Yeah. Was it? No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Episode 9.
Yes.
But and I actually at Gamer Nation Con got to play in a game with GM Phil running it, set in that setting. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Good folks over there.
Oh, yeah.
So, transitioning and going towards our topic, you had a topic for tonight.
I do. And this is something that's kind of occurred to me. And so I'm going to say it this way. The cliche goes, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? Well, I think in an RPG context, that very well could be wrong. And I am fully looking in the mirror when I say that. Because what I've realized for myself is that sometimes if I say I don't like a game, it may actually, in some cases, be more that I don't like the way that the table I was at played that game as opposed to the game itself. Or I could be playing a game that I like, but the way someone else is playing it just rubs me the wrong way.
Fair. I
you know what I'm saying?
Completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it's it is one of those things where it goes back to picking your table and stuff along those lines. You're not always going to agree with everyone. You're not always going to agree with how everyone plays a certain game. And if it's your first exposure to something, that can sort of taint your opinion of it, in my thoughts,
Very
and
much so.
basically make you go, okay, I don't like this. And in reality, it's actually more so, I don't like how they're running this, or I didn't think. This is why I'm a little hesitant to go into games I haven't read, um, because I like to know mechanically what's going on. And if I sit down at a table and somebody's explaining to me, this is how this works, and this is how this works, and this is how this works, and I don't like how any of, like, let's say combat or um, conflict resolution in general works in a system. They may have house ruled something and changed how the book says it's supposed to be done. And so now I have, how somebody else interprets the game, and I don't care for that way. And I think that's another way that you're driving at is, it's not always the game that is wrong for you.
Right, right. No, that's more. Yes, I mean it. Yes, but hang on. Okay, I have a sneeze that's trying to come out, but it's not there yet.
Fair enough.
But no, like, so I was playing a game, and I won't, call anyone out here, but it's a crunchy game, but it's a game that I accept the crunch because it adds depth. But then there was a player that came in who was playing a character that, and everything they did is completely within the rules. It's not like, I mean, it's a little min maxy, which, that's a whole nother rant to go on and whatever. But what everything they did is completely above board, right? They're not bending anything, they're not tweaking anything, they're not even really exploiting anything. They're just using what's there to the fullest.
Yeah.
And what I kind of realized was that in a crunchy system, that's just not how I want to play it. For me, I don't necessarily want to dive into how can I get the statistical most out of the crunch, as opposed to how can I do cool things, which is more where my brain goes. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
guess where I'm going to a point is that had I had that experience the first time I played this system, I might have been turned off to it, especially if most of the table was doing that.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so I guess what I'm trying to say is don't judge every game by your first experience with it necessarily.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. That is a 100% a sentiment I stand behind. Um, I feel like, and this is my 2 cents on just crunchy games in general. If I go too crunchy on a game, I might as well just be playing a miniatures war game. And I don't necessarily want to do any role playing while I'm doing that type of analytical thinking. I don't know. My brain likes to keep those two separated for whatever reason. Um,
I'm with you
like I
there. I mean that if I start getting too tactical, the role play side goes away.
Yes. Yeah. I get too tactical, and then I don't want to role play. Um and that's not what I come to this hobby for. But I can't say that I don't like crunchy games, because there's plenty of games that people point to and go, "This is crunchy," and you like it. That's fine. Like it is. I completely you're coming from as well, is that I'm not a huge fan of playing with super analytical people. Um I I I react very adversely when pushed around in a lot of situations. And I know that sounds weird, but as a player, I do not like when other players are like, "Oh, you need to do this." And I'm like, "Okay, I was planning on doing this."
Well,
And
yeah,
I'm not
and
saying, I'm not putting anyone down, and I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. I'm just saying, for me, I have that very, like, I don't know. I take constructive criticism well, but being told do X, Y, and Z and we'll win is not something I
well,
want to hear.
yeah, but it kind of amuses me to hear you say that you generally don't like playing with overly analytical people, and yet you and I play together quite well, and I'm a chronic overanalyzer.
You are and you aren't, though. When we're playing, when we're role playing and doing things, you don't come across the table as an analyzer. And what I mean by that is, like, I have friends who, and we have mutual acquaintances who have very severe analysis paralysis, where every decision in a lot of games is hit the brakes. I got to think about this for 10 minutes. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong way of playing games. I'm also saying that I play role playing games a way bit faster and looser.
Yes.
And I think you're a little bit more fast and loose as well. Your analysis in like combat situations, yeah, it's great. It's whatever. Why I'm more so saying that you're like, I don't know, you're not bossy. I know that sounds mean, but yeah. If it's
I had a
analysis
coworker.
for your own, if it's analysis for your own self, it doesn't it doesn't hurt me any. Now, when it does become a bit annoying is when you're going, okay, I've figured out that if I do this combination of things, I can get 6 more turns, and that I'm going to do this combination of things, I'm going to get 4 more turns, and then I'm going to do this combination of things. You know what I mean? Like, that gets a little annoying after a while.
Yeah. No, well, it's amusing because I had a coworker tell me a couple months back that, well, yes, Steve, but you're a happy, fun asshole.
Some of us are.
Um, but no, I get like, and like I said, I don't know how to explain it because I just, like I said, that specific circumstance, and this was basically this player's character could do a bunch of stuff to set up their main action, but it worked out to them doing like 4 rolls before they actually made their attack roll because it added, bonuses, modifiers, whatever. And okay, fine, I get that, and for what they're doing, that's a thing that class can do, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, if the whole table is playing that way, now everything takes forever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But then that's also, I'm a little bit in column A and a little bit of column B. There's a lot of good alternatives to games where the systems get in their way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
no,
if I didn't like how Cyberpunk Red played, I would absolutely play like Cyborg or
right.
any number of Cyberpunk games or Cyberpunk 2020. Like you know what I'm saying? If I don't like something in how that plays, I'll play a different game that uses a different system that is the base core concept.
Yeah, and usually that's a very very valid way to approach it. I don't know. I guess like and where I was thinking about this too is right. Like, look, it's no secret that I am not I am no longer a big fan of 5th edition, and some of that goes to experiences I've had and internet communities that are so easy to find that just over technical analyze every aspect of that game like it's a freaking spec build for World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
And
I've pretty much shut that down at my table. And I like that. I like that I've been able to effectively get my group of players to be like, well, first off, I have a group of newbies to begin
Mhm.
with. I have a group of newbies and I have a group of experienced players. And my newbies are just like barely getting the training wheels off.
Mhm.
And my experienced players are like, okay, so you don't care if our characters are perfectly maximized. And I was like, no, they don't have to be. Enjoy playing your characters. Oh, cool. Great. Then I'm going to do this weird concept or I'm going to do this awesome build. Go for it.
Yeah, like to me, and again, like you said, it's not to yuck anyone's yum. It's not to say there's a right or a wrong way, but if I'm just trying to build a statistically best thing, then I'll go do that on a video game. Like
Yeah.
I raid tanked in World of Warcraft. Okay,
Yeah.
I did chase the best build, this that getting the rotation just right. But I did that for a video game, not for a game where I'm playing a character.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I I'm with you there, honestly. I'm in the same boat. If I want to play something exacting, I'll play a video game. If I don't want to play something exacting, I'll play a tabletop RPG. I want to drop into a character and actually become a character. I don't know, there's a cognitive dissonance between me and in video games. I've never played a video game where I felt fully like sucked in. And I've played a lot of video games, right?
It,
Um
it,
but
it's just different.
I've had realistic emotions and moments in tabletop RPGs because I am the character in total control.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. And that, again, me as a person, I I don't know. None of the characters I ever build are super analytical.
Well, and like, yeah, maybe it's just how we like to play, but I, I- it's a thing,
Yeah.
and like, okay, I got to run Slay Industries twice at Gamer Nation Con,
Mm,
and now you played it with me at PGX a while back, and I've actually
correct.
learned a bit more about the system since then,
Oh, okay.
and it's interesting because it is a crunchy system,
Mm,
but it's actually intended, at least the vibe I get from it is it's intended more often than not for the player to be able to manipulate it in the favor of what they're trying to do.
hmm.
Like, there's
Interesting.
numerous ways for you to, like, for example, the charge action in melee, which does require you to have a certain amount of space between you and the character you want to charge. Well, you take a penalty on your success die, but you gain a skill die success, which
Okay.
can translate into bonus damage. But there's also this funny nugget that I found in the game that, and I don't know how much you remember how those dice worked, right? You had your success die, which is just a D10 plus stat skill trying to beat target number. Then you had skill dice, which you get one freebie and then however many ranks you have in the skill you're using. Well, there's a concept in the rule book, what they call, I think, success through experience. And what this is that if you have at least 4 skill dice success, but your success die fails, you still get a basic success.
Okay.
So you could actually manipulate your, because you're charging to almost guarantee, like, obviously dice are dice, you can't
Mm,
guarantee,
yeah, but almost.
or you can create the potential for that to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
That's kind of crazy. I
your
like
luck,
it
you
though.
can re-roll, you can spend luck to re-roll your success die, your skill dice, all your dice, the way I read it anyway. So like, it's interesting, but it's not like you have to roll this, then roll this, then roll that. It's okay, I'm going to do this, it applies these modifiers, and now we do it, but there's different ways you can use what you rolled to maybe succeed, but just not better. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was really neat. And
No,
the other
yeah.
thing I realized is specifically combat is very much skewed towards things getting hit by both sides. Like, once you get basically, if you're doing what your character's good at in combat, you're not going to miss very often.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I don't know. But it was interesting. Like, kind of once again, I got to understand a little more of the bones behind it. That it's weird in that it's not like you have to master it to get it, but like, there's tools built into it for you to be able to play with it. I don't know if that, you know.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. Um, I think that game's really cool. The more the
Oh, the
playing
world
it,
is.
and the more I hear about it, it's so neat.
Yeah, I definitely want to get something going at some point with it. You know.
Yeah, long form would be fun. Would be fun with that.
Well, that, and there's so much, like, for a game that doesn't have the massive catalog of material that so many others do. What they have is so rich with hooks and just weirdness to mess with.
Well, let me not to tangent off and talk about Slay Industries, but did you play original Slay Industries back in the day?
I I did a few sessions.
Okay.
I had a friend in college that ran it, and I did play it a couple times, and I just remember it being this gloriously screwed up setting,
Right.
basically.
Right.
I never dove into it a lot to really understand what's behind it all, like I do, even from my incomplete read of it as it stands.
Okay. That's what I was gonna ask next. Is like, does Slay Industries 2 have like? Because I assumed Slay Industries had a lot of lore behind it.
I
Because Slay
mean, it
Industries 2 feels like it's got a
does.
lot of, or not 2, but the most recent edition.
Well, I think what they did, and I'd have to go look at the PDFs of the original version. I think they advanced the timeline a few years, but you have to
Okay.
remember too that the team behind Slay 2E is 2/3 of the team that was behind Slay 1E.
Mm,
So, like, it's basically the same people. So it's all the same stuff, just, maybe cleaned up, refined, reorganized. I'm sure some of it is just, oh, hey, this is what we've been doing when we play it. So let's put it in the book.
right. Exactly. Yeah, that's cool. Hmm.
You know, eh, but there again, right? Like, okay, if you played it with someone for the first time who is very deep in the weeds about how you can manipulate the system and that's all they went on about, maybe that turns you off a little bit. Where for me, the draw is really the setting, much more like the system is neat, but the setting is the draw.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with that. That, I've had people describe games to me and I've been like, I'm not interested in that. And then I go on and look them up or end up, playing in a game or trying it later and being like, oh yeah, this is really cool. And it's all because the person that was describing it to me was focused on some part of the game that I didn't care for and they really enjoyed. And that's just a difference of personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I- okay, yeah. So the title is probably a little clickbaity, but well, it's accurate too,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
But I mean, I think, and like I said, for me, it came more from me realizing that, maybe this is something I've been doing myself and that I say I don't like something because I've had an experience that's contrary to how I want to play.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that the game is not capable of being played in an enjoyable manner for me. It just means that the tables I was playing with didn't play it in a way that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think there's been uh, maybe a handful of times where I've had an experience with a game and I was like, ooh, I don't like this. And it was mainly because I didn't like the table I was playing at. Just the truth. I don't want to call anybody out.
Yeah, well, but I mean, see, the weird part of that is too is you can be playing the game with people you legitimately like and get along with,
Oh
but
yeah, and it's just I don't like this game at this table.
right,
Um,
like that's the weird part of it. So in no way am I telling anyone that they shouldn't like the people they play with,
no, 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 no. If you don't like the people you play with, we have deeper problems.
right?
I
But
Yeah, I'll tell you something later.
okay. But I mean, like, it's, and yes, I will acknowledge that I tend to play fast and loose with the rules and do the things that, you know, sometimes I do the weird thing just because I can. But to me,
I,
that's why I play tabletop because I can do the weird thing. It's a lot harder to do that in a video game.
why did you lick the shoes?
That wasn't me.
I know that wasn't you. Oh, that was such a good time.
Oh yeah, that was good. Uh, oh jeez. Hey, I got to shoot Bob Ross at Gamer Nation Con.
Oh, that sounds like a good time. Tell me about that. Tell me about shooting Bob Ross at Gamer Nation Con.
So you remember Daryl, right?
Yeah,
Vaguely.
yeah,
Okay. So the Gamer Nation Con you were at, I actually introduced them to Delta Green. They
right.
liked it enough that they went and bought it. Have been running it with their local group, at least somewhat on and off. So this year, because the theme was paranormal, they decided to run and the thing that they do, they have at least 3 people in their group that routinely GM, depending on system, whatever. So what's kind of become their sort of tradition for Gamer Nation Con. By the way, shout out Daryl and crew have started a podcast. It's called How We Roll. We shouted them out on last episode, but you weren't here, Steve, so you may not know that.
No.
They're on YouTube and pod feeds and whatnot. So
Very
anyway, so this year they decided to run this kind of 3-part thing that they did. Like last year, they ran the Lord of the Holocrons as a 3-part Lord of the Rings in Star Wars. And actually, I got to play in 2 of those sessions, and it was really cool. Well, this year, they were running Delta Green. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get to play Delta Green. So I ended up playing in all 3 sessions. And the premise of this whole thing was that, so I'm sure you've heard the urban legend thing that, Bob Ross was a serial killer and the paintings were where he hid the bodies.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of played off that, and to make a long story really, really short and not steal any of their thunder if they go to talk about it, more on their show. So that's sort of kind of what was happening, but not really. But at one point, my character, who happened to be a SWAT officer, we bust in on Bob Ross in a storage unit in the middle of a ritual sacrifice of a human being. So he got shotgunned.
Fair enough.
Because, I mean, it's perfectly, like, I was
It's
ready
an honest
to just shoot him.
reaction to the situation.
It's because for the character, it's an honest reaction, right? Especially with the training, everything. But at the same point, and they even mentioned this, that it happened in playtesting and everything else. No one at the table really wants you to shoot Bob Ross. You know what I mean?
They may not
And
want it. It's happening.
As it turned out, let's just say that Bob was doing bad things for good reasons.
Oh, no. I know Delta Green, and I know where that's going. That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so then I ended up using a Deep One invasion to cover our tracks when we had to break into a secret military base, because I let them in the elevator to go up to the main base.
Wonderful.
I figured it would cover our tracks.
that will cover your tracks. You're good. Don't worry. We're no longer concerned with you. Oh, my.
Like it, but right, so like there's you get, like, I don't know, does that tie into the overly analytical? Like at a point I'm going, look, this character is a SWAT officer. He's encountering a situation that is, I mean, something he's probably trained almost exactly. Maybe there's no ritual element to it, but this is effectively a training scenario. This is what you do.
Mm-hmm. You reacted appropriately.
Don't
let anybody tell you that you didn't react appropriately.
Oh, it's more just become the running joke that you shot Bob Ross. Well, yes, I did.
Yes, I did. Yeah, you are correct. I had to.
It was also a thing where the setup was kind of pointing that Bob is doing these things. And of course, as the table, like, there's this element of no one wants to believe that Bob Ross is the bad guy. And part of me was going, and this is, you talk about overanalyzing, right? Part of me is thinking all the clues pointing at Bob Ross doing the bad thing is too obvious, so it's probably not Bob actually doing the bad thing. That was where my trepidation as Steve was coming from, than, oh, it's Bob Ross. Like, because, I mean, as, like, I don't know if it's that my GM side bleeding over into playing, but you get where I'm coming. Like, my thought was like, almost like, well, no, it can't be that, because that would be too obvious, and we wouldn't want to do the obvious thing, but sometimes the obvious thing is the right thing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, I shot Bob Ross.
Be proud of that.
I
in
think one of my sleigh games, they decapitated a the giant carnivorous pig with a reverse lawnmower.
Nice.
The Stormer grappled the pig and was swinging it around, and so the carrion with the big flick scythe slid underneath it with the blade extended.
It's too late for me, Steve. You said reverse lawnmower, and my brain went places of grass growing out of a a reverse lawnmower. It doesn't mow your lawn; it makes it grow longer.
No. We were spinning the thing, and the blade was stationary.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. No, that was where my brain went. Anyway, with all that, let's go ahead and move into game of the week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
All right, what you got, Steve?
I am looking for here's the button that said Green Room. I have a game. I don't know if I talked about this one. I'm going to take a quick half-second look. And I don't think I have. All right. I have a game. One of my players in my D&D campaign is currently running, and the more I look into it, the more I think about jumping in on it. It is called Triangle Agency.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gold bestseller on drive-thru. It is sort of a present day Delta Green-esque, but it's not really Delta Green. It's not as SWAT tactical based as Delta Green. It's a little bit more it almost has more of a feel of like there was a video game that came out a couple years ago called Control, where you're like dealing with anomalies, and it almost has like an ICP, or not ICP, oh my goodness, SCP feel to it. Those are two very different things. But no, it almost has an SCP feel to it, or it just has that government control, secret agency to keep the reality, in check. The tropes.
Yeah, but it has more of a feel almost like, I don't know, I'm getting vibes from it for what the hell was the agency Owen Wilson worked for in Loki?
Oh, the TVA. Yeah.
Like, it has a little more of kind of that vibe to it.
It
although
does.
Not necessarily time travel.
Right. Exactly. This is more of if the TVA dealt with Cthulhu stuff.
Yeah, but no, this actually looks really cool.
Yeah, it seems really cool, and I would like to get in on it. I think the time he has it scheduled for is outside of my time range, but he's been telling me about it for a while now.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's won some Indie Groundbreaker awards, won the Golden Fez Award, so critically acclaimed, and it looks like it's like the design and everything, as far as the graphic design, looks very planned and very like it's definitely got a thing going.
It has its own art style, and I really dig that about it. And it definitely sets up a tone. Like I said, I've been hearing about Triangle Agency for a little while. I hadn't heard of it prior to that one player bringing it up, and then now I started looking into it, and it's really okay. It's really cool. But yeah, that's Triangle Agency. That's mine.
All right. Well, so I had two, and I'm going to go with one that I found that, well, on the surface, you would guess that it is a retro clone.
Okay.
And I think when you click on the link, you'll know exactly what of. It's a game called Sinless, from a company called Hack and Slash Publishing. And the artwork very clearly pays homage to first or second edition Shadowrun.
Yeah.
Like the cover. And even reading down through the description, it is Shadowrun-ish, or at least it started that way.
Okay.
But like they've added a bunch. Like some humans are what they call the Blighted, which, may have tusks or horns or other mutations, right? Then there's the Greens. Maybe they have antlers, almost more Fae-esque or natural. There are AIs that are in bodies. There are uplifted animals.
This
Like
this
like it very clearly pays homage to Shadowrun. I'm not gonna,
yeah. I
but
think
like
well, it's taking Shadowrun and doing some stuff with it. That's cool.
right, and like the way I'm reading some of it, like it sounds like they took again. It's still D6 dice pool, but the way I read some of the stuff here, it almost looks like you can like use parts of your pool, but not all of it. So you could
Hmm.
maybe, do you reserve some for defense, or I don't know exactly how it works, but like it, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There's something there. Um, I don't know. I'm not seeing it right now, but like
Yeah, and it's all of $25. It
right, and you're getting it's a 260 page PDF. Like so this
yeah,
is
it's not a thin book. It's not a
yeah. No,
little like
I looked up some of the authors, the main author's other work, and it is very kind of OSR-ish. But I mean, original Shadowrun goes back to late '80s.
yeah,
Um,
original Shadowrun is OSR-ish. I don't know what to tell you.
You know what I mean? But it doesn't appear that like they went, oh, we're going to make a retro clone. It looks like they
Yeah.
went, this is what we're starting with, but this is our version of this world, this setting premise, not, you know, like they're not basically trying to just reskin the old thing. They're making their own thing based on it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's cool. I like it. I like them doing their own twist on it. I heard a couple people talking about this, but I never really looked into it anything further than the cover art, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, like that's when I first saw it. I'm like, oh, that looks like a Shadowrun retro clone, and to a point, it probably is, but it looks like they've gone past that. You know what I mean? Which
There's enough added content. Yeah, ugh, but well, any final thoughts?
I don't know. I mean,
Yep.
like I said, I just like the idea really was just to think about maybe the reason you don't like something isn't that you actually don't like the game, it's you don't like how it got played when you were there, and you might be cheating yourself out of something that you would really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with all that being said, we want to remind everyone, as always, links to everything are in the show notes. Um, Discord, we're on Discord. We're on all podcatchers, um, or all that we can be. Um, yeah, and as always, be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast, on Discord at Me and Steve RPGs, and as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.